Hey everyone, this is Jason Bitbender Brink from Gala Games. I am here with Doc, Derek Jarvis, Michael Fearn, and Chris Freeland, and we're going to be talking about the Gala Games node ecosystem. The first little bit is mostly going to be Doc telling us about a little bit of what's coming in the future and how everything is going to be rolling out with the Gala Games node ecosystem. After that, we will be doing an AMA, but because there's four of us on screen here, we're not going to have the questions showing up on the screen. I'll just be picking stuff from the node chat, the founders nodes section of our Discord, which you can join at galagames.chat if you're not there yet. So, welcome, and how are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Let me
so
just
far. Doing
poke
well.
my head in the founders node chat here and see if anyone can hear us. Is anyone having audio problems? Mal, it's live. It's live. Thank you guys. Awesome. AWAX 2. Great. So you want to just take it away, Doc? It's all you, man.
Awesome. Exactly what I was expecting. Uh, sure. Let's discuss a little bit about what we've just finished up, which I think Michael and Chris will also talk about, and where that's going to lead us. So they're all commenting on your beard. So, as you guys may know, we kept talking about a new node that was going to come, and we mentioned that there were some delays because of the underlying technology that was using way too much bandwidth. So that's been resolved, and actually the entire node software that's being ran for anyone running that beta node, he says turn me up.
I'm looking at that
Why?
here.
Can see if I can crank it from my side too.
No, I'm cranking it up over here. Okay, keep
Okay.
talking.
Okay. So what has just been released is actually a rewrite, which will make it a lot easier for us to release new versions with small bug fixes, or feature additions, things like that. The main one that we snuck in now is the notification for if your nodes go down, which was a highly requested feature. And also, obviously, the DCDN capabilities. I don't know how much I can say about exactly where we're going to go, but what I can say is that you might see a little bit of a slowdown in some of the node updates because we're also working on the Gala chain. So nodes and Gala chain are going to go hand in hand, which is why we're talking about it and why this team is also involved on both sides, because there is an intention that the nodes will absolutely be participating in the Gala chain. Uh, we have lots of things we want to do, but as it's still new technology and we're still developing it, we can't make too many solid promises, but they are definitely going to be working together. People running nodes will have some interaction with the Gala chain and moving towards decentralization so that they can actually communicate to each other in a decentralized way. Uh, Potentially node votes going on the Gala chain directly instead of always needing to go through a centralized website.
Awesome.
So do we want to show the couple of new pages, or do you want to
Nah, man,
answer
I
some other
don't. I
questions?
don't think they're interested in. I don't think they're interested in seeing anything. Probably not. You know,
Okay.
our community's not super inquisitive or anything like that. So that was it. Good job. No, actually,
Yeah, I think we
yes.
should probably call it in.
You
Yeah,
call it.
call it
Call
in.
it. Phone it
Yep,
in.
that,
Yeah,
that's
we're
that's
good
the
now.
AMA. See you guys.
Okay, Adnet wants to see something. So just for Adnet.
All right, we
Okay.
can we can do that. Give me just a sec. All right. So here we have this is the version 2.04.
Make sure
Like
you
Doc
can.
said, this is a pretty much a complete rewrite. So everything you're seeing here is going to be fresh. Let's see, this is
Hold on one second.
Yeah, I don't think.
For whatever reason, it's not coming through on the stream. Give me just one second. I need to move this thing, and then I need to move this thing. Sorry, guys. We
You
practiced
just take
this and it worked.
snips and post it in Discord.
No. We'll get this working. One second. So I'm gonna add in a un momentito por favor.
I've gone blind. All I see is darkness. It's like an old friend.
Oh, come on. Why isn't this
Nice.
working? Discard. Get rid of that. So everyone got to see my my game there for a second. Oh no. Just broadcast my personal meeting ID. Hope nobody caught that.
Oh no!
We may get some visitors, guys. Keep that minimized. Why is this not working? Oh my god. Okay,
Can
hold
I
on.
answer a question while you're doing
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely. Please answer a
Okay.
question.
So to Zia, however you want to pronounce that. This is a very common question. How long can I use a basic VPS? The answer is I don't know, because a basic VPS is different from server to server, right? Each provider is going to offer you different hardware at a different price point, and I can assure you they do not care about your nodes staying online all the time. So the cheapest VPSs are usually for
Got it.
hosting a website. So how long is really dependent on what tier that is, what that price point offers. And you're saying $7 a month. I don't know what that means. You'll know when you need to upgrade to a higher spec, when it is not enough from our recommended requirements, which we do have posted on the support website. We give out a list of suggested specs. But even if you meet that, if your node's not staying online, then you need to upgrade it. And that's about all I can say is give it a try. And if it's not able to handle it, because there's too much other stuff running, because it's a really old processor or whatever, then it needs to be increased. So, yeah.
And I think just to add on to that, operating system will affect that too. So if you're running Linux and I can run the DCD on Linux node on on tighter system constraints, but it's not necessarily smart, but I can get away with it. But for Windows, that's not possible.
And then Ed is linking us in the chat. Thank you very much, Ed. So the video is working
Yeah,
now?
video's working now. Go for it.
Awesome. Sweet. Now, as I said before, this is the new login screen. Oh, I got my password incorrect. That wasn't a low-key feature show. Here we can see the node starting up. Now this is a account I created just for this demo, so I don't have any licenses or Gala, so get away from me, you monkeys. But we'll see here all of the Gala that you've minted in the ecosystem will show up, which is to be expected. We've seen that feature before. And most of this you've seen before, minus maybe the distribution updates. We've updated this to actually stream in the ledger itself. So the initial very long wait times for loading everything in is no longer going to be an issue. And yeah, we also have the content delivery tab, which we'll probably come back to in just a second. But this is what's big in version 2. You're actually contributing to the network now, and this is the page that will show you the stats for how you're doing that. Like I said, we'll come back. Again, this is another familiar tab. We have the network power, which shows pretty much the basic stats of your computer, and then an aggregated result of that of everyone currently running the node. We have the voting tab, but currently we don't have a current vote. I do have something in the oven that I can show you guys in just a second. And by just a second, I mean right now. I'm switching over right now. Cool. So here we have the new voting UI. Before there seemed to be a lot of confusion on whether or not you could vote for everything at one place or seeing the results of your voting and things like that. Thanks to the wonderful efforts of our designers, it seems like we've done a pretty good job of presenting in such a way where you don't have to worry about that. So here, this is a previous vote that's in our testing environment, just so I can show you guys. So right now, there isn't any votes cast, but on this account, I have 3 node licenses. So as you can see here, I can cast a total of 3 votes, or I can go down to a minimum of 1. So let's say for some reason I wanted to vote all three at 1, I could do that, but for the moment, I'm just going to vote 1 yes. We'll see that go to 100%, since, again, I'm the only one here. Only my votes count, and the other two will just say abstain, just to see what happens. Yeah, so as far as the UI goes, that's pretty much it. There are some new features that we may talk about later in terms of like Doc mentioned, updating and rolling out quick fixes and the likes. But I think we'll get back to that later. Got more important things to go over.
So
Awesome.
I think, go ahead, Jason.
No, no, go ahead, you man. This is your show, bro. I'm just
Yeah.
here.
I
I'm
think
here to push buttons.
one of the most common questions is, what does this content delivery tab do? So could you show that, and then we'll let Chris explain what those lovely numbers mean?
Yes.
Cool.
And for those of you, let me just interject here. For those of you who are new to the stream, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Jason Bitbender Brink at Gala Games, and we are talking about the Gala Games Node ecosystem. Typically, we would have a restream chat going so that I could see everybody's comments across all platforms. So wherever you're watching this, we'd be able to talk to you. But because we have 4 of us on the stream right now, and there just isn't enough screen real estate, we're taking all questions through our Discord at galagames.chat. There is a founders node section that you can join, and you can ask questions there about what we're building and what's going on with Gala Games and the future of the Gala Games node ecosystem. And we might even get a little bit into Gala Chain here. We'll see how into the weeds we get. So continue, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this page will look different for a lot of different people. This is, our second iteration of the DCDN beta, and it looks different than our first iteration slightly, and it looks obviously different from the mainstream node because this page isn't on it. So I can hear myself in the background. That's a trip. But anyways, we've got this network peers box. Basically what that means is you have this many peers in your IPFS network. And really what that means is that that many nodes existing on the internet know about your node and also the content that you have. So like in the DCDN node example, the UI itself is on IPFS. And so if you have 500 network peers, there's 500 other peers that know that you have the UI once you've loaded up the node. Network pins is things like the node being stored locally. So whenever we release new content, we have a pinning mechanism to add it to IPFS, and then those pins are stored locally on your machine, and that's what network pin signifies. Current is just the current traffic is just, like the roughly real time consumption of bandwidth that the node's using, and then total is just an overtime metric. Total isn't quite dialed in, but it's still pretty reliable and helpful for debugging purposes. And local storage and local objects, excuse me, are just like the data stored by the DCDN, at the given point in time.
Cool. Can I add in something there on the network peers? The network peers is not the total number of people in the network, right? It's the number of peers
Right.
that your node can see.
Yep.
So in a typical client-server relationship, it looks like we got your whole screen now, Michael.
Ooh.
And in the typical client-server relationship, a server could tell you every single person connected because they're all connected to the server. But because this is decentralized, they can only tell you how many peers they can see. So that number goes up and down. And that's also why we were telling everyone that it likes to crash routers, because it's maintaining a lot more connections than a typical client server would.
And in our previous implementation, we did have a mechanism to like construct a like Gala DCDN network and see how many peers are in that network, but it was too hungry for bandwidth, and so with this new iteration, we see we see the node in a more decentralized way where it can see other nodes and nodes can see it, but that list or that relationship changes swiftly over time to make sure those connections are robust and viable.
Yeah. Are you able, Fern, are you able to unshare and then sign into the Linux one so we can show people that? And
Sure. Actually, I already have
cool. Yeah.
that
Just
ready
don't
in
want
the
to show
oven
off your
as well.
password.
Let's see.
So, yep. As everyone can see, actually, do you want to explain it, Michael, or do you want me to?
Sure. With the Linux node, most of what you're going to be seeing here is just network specific stats. Now, if you're running this as a service, this information won't be immediately visible. You'll have to go through a little bit more work to see it. But if you're running it through the command line, you can easily see what your node's doing in the DCDN. All of the basic concepts are the same, what you're seeing with peers and the network. But this doesn't have the additional overhead of running, we'll say, like the UI and everything else. And like Chris has mentioned before, whenever you're using Linux, you have like less OS overhead as well. So you can get more bang from your buck, so to speak.
Yeah, and so I want to add on something that you mentioned it. The installer script we provide runs this as a service. So you run the script, it will install it in a specific location, configure it, it'll ask you for your username and password, and set it up as a system service on Ubuntu. And that's the easy way that you don't have to worry about it too much. For those who want to go digging, you can look at the binary that it installs by looking at systemctl in Ubuntu. And if you run it manually, it will give you this page, which can be helpful for debugging purposes. So if you want to see, is it connecting? How long has it been online? What's the progress? And if the screen was a little bit bigger under log, you would actually see the pings going out to the server. So this can be helpful for debugging. If you see errors in this log, that would explain why maybe your node is not being seen as online. So when you're doing this, though, you should be careful because when you run it, the binary directly through the command line, it will show your password in plain text. So when you're typing in username and password, your password is shown in plain text. It's not, that's why we don't advise sharing your screen while you're signing into this thing.
Especially not on an AMA with a couple hundred people.
Yep, that would be bad. So this is just another little tool that the Linux people will have at their disposal. I want to answer one other question that I saw from Topher asking, what determines what nodes and how many nodes each node can see? It's random. It's kind of chance. It's up to how IPFS operates, where it's trying to travel through the network and learn about other peers. And it's not a set thing to say how many nodes it will be able to see. It just depends on where you're located in the world, which nodes are close to you, which ones have open ports that you can talk to directly versus have to bounce through another peer. Anything to add there, Chris?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I was responding to people on Discord.
No, it's fine. I was just wanting to know if you felt anything was left out of talking about how many nodes a peer can see. And I said it's kind of random.
Yeah, I don't, it's more on it's based really on the viability of the connection between peers, its health. If it, you'll see, so I think it might be good to know or to explain this a little bit because people ask often. So in the content network peers, so in the node, you can see it here, and then obviously it's visible in the DCN tab of the other node. But that list or that number fluctuates constantly. If you're looking at it in real time, you'd see it change every couple seconds. And sometimes you'll see it drop by half. You'll see it climb up to 600 and then drop to, like 250. And really what that's doing is we've set some watermarks that we want the connection level to roughly be between. Because if it gets too high, it can crash your router. And we don't have, it's hard to constrain those things like tightly to where we know like all consumer grade routers would be fine, but the peer would be viable, if that makes sense. So you'll see this constantly being groomed, and the trimming process, I guess, the trimming process is due to the connection viability, but also keeping your connection level at like a safe spot.
Yeah. And I think someone asked that specific question. It's scrolling by now, but basically asked about it crashing routers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm missing it. Anyway, it's not that we do it to crash routers. It's just the nature of decentralization that it requires more connections. When you go to your ISP or when you go to buy a router, the things it's going to say on the box is how fast can it go? Because up until now, that's always been the measure, how
Right.
many megabits per second. And no one ever talks about number of open connections it can handle, because up until now, everything's been client server. One server has a bunch of connections from a bunch of clients. But when it's decentralized, you have a lot more connections from every peer talking to all of its other peers. And it's just that when networks, ISPs give you hardware, they're usually giving you pretty cheap hardware. And the pretty cheap hardware is not designed to handle a lot of connections. That's how they made it cheaper. So a decent router you would go buy from the store yourself will probably not have many issues. Uh, I would say that on average, an ISP router should be able to handle one node, right? But if you are trying to run 10 nodes from your place, you're going to start having problems from an ISP router, definitely, and even potentially from a medium level router. But if we talk about what does it mean to run 10 nodes from your home, while that's great and we appreciate the support, it's not to be expected that everyone should be able to run 10 nodes from their home, because not everyone's going to be buying 10 nodes, and that's not very decentralized. So it's nothing intentional. As Chris mentioned, we will be continuing to fine tune it and groom it and see how we can maintain the network performance and not overuse bandwidth or connections. But it's just going to be an iterative thing. Jason, do you want to pick the next question?
Sure, I'll pick the next question. Let's see here. We've got some good ones. I think, one of the things that I would personally like to address is this concept of the way that the nodes are rewarded for operation. Now, there's a couple questions dealing with this. One is, will there be different metrics for different levels of network involvement? And I think that it would be fair to say that, yeah, obviously there will be. So if you're running a node and you're running a single node and you're supporting the network versus, running a node that is handling, if you're running a node that's your very simple VPS node versus running a node that's running IPFS and supporting the network in a much more tangible way, there will probably be a proposal at some point in time in the future about exactly how that should be handled. Because the more you contribute, the more rewards you should get. I think that's pretty fair. Everyone would acknowledge that. The second question is, okay, so what exactly do you get for running a node? There's some questions here like, oh gosh, every time the node turns on, somehow that makes it worse for me. And in addition to the normal, hashtag don't buy nodes are not an investment. I think that it is important, and please, I apologize for the person who has apparently decided they needed to cut a tree immediately outside my window. So the other part of this is that as the ecosystem grows, as more games come to the ecosystem, and I don't know, guys, you've been in our weekly meetings now, for some time. Do you think there's more games coming to the ecosystem? Does that sound like a thing?
I totally was not playing a beta over the weekend.
Totally not playing a beta, right? That totally wasn't the thing.
If there were things to be excited about, it would be the potential for games, but
games though.
Yeah, games for sure. So as a node operator for contributing to the network, you have the potential to receive, and this deals with a couple other questions I've seen. Sorry, Doc, I didn't mean to sort of like hijack this and answer 8 questions at once. There will be something coming to the node operators for each of these games that gets released. And I think that part of this ties into Gala Chain. And if you don't mind, Doc, I'm going to mute myself so that nobody has to hear this person outside, and then you can talk a little bit about that. How about that?
Sure. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about that. It is one of the things that's been asked a lot. I think you're still not muted, Jason. I can still hear a tree cutting. Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about that. Uh, the way the nodes are going to work, the nodes are working as far as rewards go, yeah, of course, there's going to be a scaling up, and this has been in the node map forever, right? There's a known way about how the Gala comes into existence. There's a minting schedule of how we will reach the max supply of the 50 billion Gala, and that is getting distributed out to the nodes according to that plan. And it's also known that that's going to run out. And the idea is that as the distribution goes down over time, the rewards for doing work and contributing to the network will go up. And that's with games coming to the network, whether that's a drop just from the game coming to the network and node owners getting a slice of that, or from them actually getting rewarded directly for the work they do. So as some people saw, you get uh, some people got an exemplar, right? They did another Miranda's drop to the store, and a couple really lucky node owners that were not me got
Or
got an
me.
exemplar, right? So you see everyone here except for Chris. He's got his smug smile. Maybe he got one, but you know, we didn't get the free exemplars, right? Someone else got those. But yeah, the goal, at least my goal, which is not a promise right now, but what we want to do is have the nodes be able to do specific work. We're tentatively calling that a workload. So what you're seeing right now with the DCDN is a DCDN workload, that these nodes are hosting files and offering them out. Right now, it's a very generic thing, but perhaps there would be game-specific DCDN content, right? Well, if you want to pin all of the Miranda's content, that takes a lot more space than the general Gala Games content, potentially each of them having its own reward structure. But as we know, whatever that reward structure is, it needs to go to a node vote, right? There would be a proposal written, and we would propose it, and the nodes would review it, provide feedback, vote it. Uh, yeah, any thoughts or comments that you want to add in there, Jason? No, I'm guessing not.
Um, sorry. No, that was fairly solid, and I think it gives a very good view for some of what's coming in the future. Um, let's see. Let's go pick another couple questions. I'm going to mute myself again, and I'll let you pick another one.
Do one of you guys, Michael or Chris, got one you want to answer or raise up?
I'm scrolling through at the moment.
Yeah, I got one really quick because Lusa asked a couple times. I think it's Lusa. Um, so asking about like a node health metric to promote better node operators. I think that ties into what Doc was mentioning, you know, with having workloads and like a prescriptive operation that you can, you know, like contribute to or take on. So if you decide, like, let's say we have a bunch of Miranda's content on the DCDN that we, you know, that you can pin and like contribute to that workload, that will probably, I mean, we will have to verify the health of that operation, but we also need to make that verification somewhat transparent to you as the operator to make sure that you are operating properly. And I think the first kind of like iteration of that idea is the email notifications. Like we do want to increase transparent or visibility into the system and how your contributions are operating in that system. And if we start implementing workloads, that needs to be a part of that. I don't know if that made sense, but
And I think more workloads will come. I think they will make themselves known. Also, that's part of what gets discussed with the game developers as they want to join the platforms. If some game developer says they want to do world generation on the decentralized network of nodes and they want to work with us to make a workload for that, that's cool, right? Why not? And especially if the nodes get rewards for doing so. So when people ask for the specifics of exactly what will it be, it's kind of impossible to specifically say right now because there's so many games in development, so many games coming, and that will be the case for years to come, that there will be more and more things joining the network, and it's always going to be an adaptive thing. I'll grab another one or two. So if we run out of the 50 billion Gala to distribute, what happens? Well, we kind of just talked about that, where the way the Gala gets distributed is what it is. There is a plan about how it marches out into the ecosystem, and that doesn't change regardless of when the nodes finish selling. But depending on when they finish selling, just depends on how many people are going to be getting those rewards for doing work on the network, and what they're hosting and what they're running. Now, something that I'm going to say too, we don't like proof of work. I saw the question earlier about, will we be using GPUs? I won't say it would never happen, but it's definitely not where we want to go with becoming something like Ethereum or Bitcoin, where you just have this thing that's melting a hole in your computer and burning electricity for no reason. It's not necessary. Eric likes to call it pointless work or proof of waste. There's some other very good consensus algorithms out there that don't require burning through electricity with varying levels of trust, right? And Ethereum is great because it's permissionless, but permissionless is not the answer to everything, to be perfectly honest. And permissionless is also kind of I don't know, it's a very vague term because it's permissionless, but it's the EIP council that decides what gets added and what doesn't get added to the network. And the Ethereum nodes vote on it. And if they all vote no, and the council does it anyway, then they can fork. I mean, so there's always going to be a level of permission in any blockchain thing based on the nodes deciding to continue participating in it. So.
Right. And the noise outside has stopped, thank goodness. You were going to say something, Michael?
I was seeing a question from Nan about open sourcing. We've actually had a couple conversations about this. Now there's a lot of moving parts that we're not ready to share just yet, but there are also some things that could come in the future that we could open source, but we haven't done any of that yet.
Yeah, I've made a comment as well about this in the past. I mean, even before I joined Gala Games, right? I always liken it to when Homer Simpson designed a car, right? In The Simpsons, he designs this car, and it's got 20 mirrors and 15 cup holders and 3 radios. Like it's really easy to decentralize something like a vote, right? That's easy. Everyone can view the code. Everyone knows what it is. It's very straightforward. But the more complicated you get something, and the more opinions you want to interject into that, the longer it's going to take, and it's never going to get finished. And while we do want to decentralize, and we are working towards decentralization, we also want to have games that you can play. And we don't want that to get crippled by 50 different people doing a pull request about how they feel this one module should be, right? So open source is a very loose term. So will the code be read, or at least some of the code be read by people in the future? Absolutely, especially by third-party auditors, right? Who we would want to review code before we release it, right? Does that mean we would allow PRs to everything that Gala Games does? No. I mean, and especially if we're talking about the difference between the node network versus internal workings, right? What Gala Games does versus what the Gala network does, and what the Gala node network does, and what the game developers themselves do, right? So it's kind of a loaded question when people ask, will it all be open sourced? I mean, the easy answer is to say no, because it's really complicated. But we want to decentralize as much as we can, while also delivering good games and delivering fun to people.
Right. I'd like to take one of these questions here from Johnny Two Spoons, which is a fantastic name. I imagine, I picture you eating lots of ice cream for some reason. Anyway. So he asks, do you see more blockchains being added in the future, Cardano, etc., or is it moving more towards Gala chain? So here is the way that I want you guys to think about Gala chain, and Doc, feel free to step in and say no if you want. But the way that I see that happening is what we'll essentially have is, think of a wagon wheel, okay? And at the center of that wagon wheel is the hub. The hub of that entire wagon wheel is Gala chain. Each of those spokes that connects to the outside is an L2 or bridging solution of some sort. So this includes things like Flare, uh, Polygon, formerly Matic, Near, all of these types of things, specifically things that are EVM, or EVM compatible rather, will be things that we can eventually potentially integrate in the future. Now, obviously, we've released announcements saying that we're definitely going to be connecting with a few of them, Flare, Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, etc. But the Gala chain itself will always serve as the oracle and source of truth for that entire wagon wheel. It doesn't work without the hub. So both of those things, to be honest, will be kind of taking place at the same time in the integration of new things and the standing up of Gala Chain. Or not really the same time. I've seen them on the roadmap and they are in slightly different places because obviously one has to come before the other. But there definitely will be other chains as well as Gala Chain at the center of it all. Does that answer your question, Johnny Two Spoons? Ooh.
Yeah, and I actually got asked this question. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to talk about this question from RH. How will you decide what will be on a database and what will be on game-specific chains? I think that this is kind of an interesting question, and it kind of goes into a little bit of a game design question. From a game design perspective, anytime you have something going on a chain, there is, on one hand, there's a cost associated with it. There has to be a cost associated with it. It doesn't have to be a large cost, but there does need to be some sort of cost because the people maintaining that chain, i.e. the node network and supporting that chain, need a piece of something. And we've seen time and time again that when you have something that is a completely free, like you see feeless chain, okay? What feeless chain means is let's just completely bury you in useless crap because we can, because it's free and nobody will stop us, which is ultimately bad for the chain in the long run. I'm not going to name names as far as some of those, but we've seen that problem before, and we want to make sure that we avoid it. So it boils down to a game decision. If you go and chop down a tree, okay, in Mirandus, does that need to be an on-chain event? I would say that it doesn't. That's a database event. If you go and you take that tree and you bundle it into one wagon of wood that will be traded, then maybe that is an on-chain event. But there's a point at which does this make sense from a fees perspective to put it on chain versus not put it on chain.
Yep. And I think that if you scale that back a little bit in different terms, if you think about RAM versus disk, right? When you store something in memory versus you actually write it to disk, there's a decision to make. Am I going to write this 10 gigabytes of data to disk, or am I just going to process it and then throw it away? Not that the game data would actually be thrown away, but it's similar for a blockchain. You don't need to have all that data on the blockchain. And there's always going to be limits to how much can be stored and how much makes sense to store. So to Jason's point, I completely agree. It's a game developer's decision. To hint a little bit at what we're doing with it, with the Gala chain, and as he mentioned and as we talked about yesterday, we want to make sure that we can deliver on games. And so even if you talk about Cardano, last I checked, it doesn't support smart contracts yet. They're still working on it. It's still in the pipeline, and they have some milestones that they're working towards. But there's lots of out there that want to be an Ethereum killer, and maybe they will be someday. And maybe in that time things will go very well, and the gas fees will be very low. Or maybe it turns into another Ethereum where people get a little bit greedy and the gas prices go through the roof, and the network wasn't designed to stop that, right? We can't have our games riding on that, right? We simply can't. If you look in the crypto space, you'll find other games that basically stall while they're trying to go somewhere else because they get killed by the blockchain they're riding on. So to kind of segue into the Gala chain stuff, the other issue with game development and going into blockchain is how do you integrate with it? And before layer 2s were a thing, you just had people writing Solidity code to try to integrate with the Ethereum blockchain with smart contracts. And now you have some other things in this space. There's, I don't know, can I name names, Jason, or should I not do that?
Yeah, how mean are you going to be?
No, I'm not going to be mean. I'm just
Okay,
going to
then
say that,
sure.
okay, I won't name names, but there are things in this space that some might see as a competitor to us because they offer an API that runs things on a chain, whether that's Ethereum base layer 2 or whatever it is, right? They're offering an API to do that. But what they're often doing is giving you an EVM compatible layer, which means, hey, you can go write that same crazy smart contract code you would on the regular network, which in my opinion, I think doesn't help game developers, right? Oh, great. Now we still need to hire Solidity developers to do our thing. But I'm not sure if you know this, we're a game company, not a smart contract company, right? So part of what we want to do with the Gala chain is give an API or SDK, however you want to call it, that has simpler building blocks. Like Jason dropped a little hint, the ability to lock a token so that you don't have an issue of someone trying to scam you by putting it in the trade window and then immediately withdrawing it from the network the second you click trade, and trying to write a contract around that. So having a base ability to lock a token to prevent scams is a huge win in my mind. And for game developers as well, that they don't have to try to figure out how to do that. Do they hold it temporarily and then swap between the two parties or whatever? So we want to provide an easier level of access to the game developers. Now, could they get more complicated? Yeah, I don't see why not. But I think that given a menu of things to choose from, of decent functionality, I think a lot of game developers are going to like that instead of realizing that they need to write a bunch of Solidity code from scratch if they want to integrate.
Right, right. Couple. I want to just take a couple questions here that people have been posting. Don't Flex says if all the Gala is done being distributed, that means you won't be able to buy it anymore, like on exchanges. No, that doesn't mean that. If the Gala has been distributed to the nodes, it's probably still going to be out there in the wild on exchanges and things like that. That's not something we control, but I don't see why it wouldn't be. So yeah, that just dealing with that because I've seen it posted a few times. And then let's see here. How does the node vote work for new and future existing games? If you have a studio working on a game that we want to bring to a node vote but is voted down by node owners, how would that be handled? So one of the things that we do here is we work very hard to curate what is brought to the network as much as we can at this point in time. At a future date, it will be something that will be a lot more decentralized, but we still want to make sure that there is a high bar of quality. The last thing that we want is for terrible games to kludge up the network and create bad user experiences and things like that. This is something that's really important to us, which is why you don't see a ton of games being just like flung at you. We could go out, by next week and find 15 crappy games and just cram them into the pipeline, very, very easily. There's tons of crappy games everywhere. We know because people bring us crappy games all the time. But that's not what we want to do. So we want to make sure that things are very, very, very high quality before they even get to a point where we would consider, presenting them to the nodes at this point in time. In the event that something was voted down, there would be a reason for that. And it would probably be a reason that was very, very clear. And so it would be worth sitting down, going backwards and saying, okay, well, obviously people didn't like this. What was it that they didn't like about it? Is it just a different type of game that they didn't want, or is there some sort of fundamental flaw that we missed that the community picked up on? If that were the case, then we would obviously go back to the drawing board with it and figure out what the problem was. I don't, however, think that that will be the case due to the very, very, very stringent quality restrictions that we currently have in place. Yeah, but in that case, there would definitely be a go back to the drawing board, figure out what was wrong, and then, potentially bring it forward again after people have had a chance to look at it. Yes, quality over quantity. Let's see. Shredder wants a game to be dropped.
I don't know. Should we play a game?
Should we play a game? Should we? I'm
Maybe
afraid we shouldn't. I want to. I really want to.
Shouldn't.
We shouldn't. I'll probably get in trouble. We still have stuff under pretty heavy press embargo. If we just bust it out and start playing here, then people would people would lose their mind. Ooh, here's a good question from Johnny T. Can you take that one, Doc?
Oh, sure. Let me build my own little noose.
Well, here, just take it and make it way lower than you think it will be.
Yeah.
You know.
Ooh.
So let me just say that there's a couple parts in this. Okay. So, first off, way higher than 20. That's what we're shooting for. Way higher, like multiples higher. And there's a couple reasons for that, and there's a couple ways we can achieve that. So the current plan is that we would have, we're calling it an asset chain that determines who owns what, right? Who has what, who has given whom an allowance to do something. And yeah, Mal will tie the news for me. So that needs to move fast, and it needs to work well. I can or cannot send this thing to someone else. That's relatively simple. Now, if you want to get into the complex situation of what Jason was talking about earlier, where you chop down a tree, maybe it's like the world tree, and that was actually a huge quest event, and that wants to be logged to the blockchain of all the people who participated in that, right? That's something that the Miranda's game developers can decide to do, and maybe they also want to track on chain which axe chopped down the tree, right, as part of like this persistent history. That's also something that the game developer can do. But that's not something that needs to be on the asset chain to say who owns this axe, right? Or who is leasing this axe to someone else, right? So there will be subchains, ideally, where the games get to sort of add additional metadata to items, or potentially even have items that only exist in their subchain, and they never even need to come out to the primary asset chain. So we want to go way higher than 20. I'll say like or measured by hundreds instead of measured by tens, right? We're still working on it, and the theoretical maximums of some of the software we're using fully supports this. It has been done, not for the specific use case that we're targeting, but we feel pretty confident. We'll get where we want to go, and absolutely confident it's going to blow 20 TPS out of the water. So yeah, that's not going to be the problem. One other comment too is that with the ability of having simpler building blocks is that you can batch things together, right? So instead of having, if we find that one certain type of transaction happens a lot, like maybe like, I don't know, guilds paying people or something, pay people a small amount of money, we can improve the network and make that into one transaction that is just batching a payment to 20 people, which suddenly helps our throughput because you don't need 20 transactions to do that one thing. So a transaction in itself can also be kind of a loose term.
Right. Nate123 has a question here that I'd like to develop. Sorry, I'm reading his question while trying to talk. I'd like to answer and develop an answer onto this question. He asks, if a game developer wants to have Gala rewards in their game, are they getting those rewards out of an escrow account set aside for game development out of the $50 billion from Gala Games, or are they going to need to purchase those on the open market? The way that we're setting up the ecosystem, it is designed for each game to have its own specific token with its own specific method of release, and part of that can be as a reward. You'll notice a few weeks ago we discontinued the 100 Gala promotion thing for Townstar because Gala Games is bigger than Townstar. There are a lot more games coming to the network, and we don't necessarily want to tie activities in those games to the distribution of Gala itself. So it is likely that if we were to have so for example, you might have a game like Fortified, okay, and they might do a promotion that would be using their own specific coin, and they would be giving rewards in that specific coin, not in Gala itself. Okay. Um, Punjab has a question about having like keeping track of the number of items on the chain. Um, so for example, an axe, I believe, and Doc, stop me if I'm wrong, that if there was a token that was a specific type of axe, then the total number of those axes in existence on the chain at any given time would be able to be known. Yeah.
It just depends on how it's created. I mean, the current plan is that there would be one contract used to define tokens on the Gala chain,
Right.
whether that's a currency token or whether that's an axe, and that would have the ability to have a maximum limit. So I think some of this might be the game developers' decision as well. Do they want to make that commitment to say there will only ever be 100, and they will choose when to mint it out, or they say that it will only be a 1% drop rate? Right. If they say it's a 1% drop rate, then you can't guarantee that it's only ever going to be 100,
Right.
but you can still ensure the scarcity of it. And to talk about something else that he said, does the item have a proof hash? No, because there's no proof of work. So there is no proof. Is there a unique hash? Absolutely. It has an ID. And if we define that it's a fungible token where these are interchangeable, right? An axe is an axe and you have one, versus this is, mega axe number 17, right?
Yeah.
That has its own ID, right? So that's the difference between fungible and non-fungible. So, and that's kind of what I was hinting at when I say if a game wants to track specific information, and there's just, in my mind, there's so many cool things game developers could do with that. Maybe that's something you have to upgrade, right? That you want to say that I want everyone to know what I have killed with my axe, which makes it into a non-fungible thing with a unique ID that will trace, and I can brag to everyone about all the bosses I killed, right? Maybe you don't feel like paying for that, and you're just interested in killing things with your axe, right? So
It's like the
there's some
difference
cool
between a
things that the
named weapon
developers can
and,
do. Yeah.
Anyway.
But we don't decide that, right? So we can, the community, and we might as well float those ideas to game developers. We may have some influence on Mirandus and Townstar, right? But ultimately, there will be game developers coming, and they will be looking for new and interesting ways to build these games on the blockchain.
Yeah, we don't want to be in the business of telling game developers what's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell them what's not fun.
Yeah. So let's see here.
Someone, I got a question to answer. Or
Hit it,
I
man.
want to ask the group on. Someone in the chat asked when Mega Axe.
Yeah, who's that Crux guy?
Answer on that?
When Mega Axe?
Sorry.
That is a very good question. That
From what
may
I hear, every monster that you kill, there's like a new decoration that somehow attaches itself to it.
so
Mega
right now
Axe feature.
McCarthy is watching this stream and frantically typing angry messages. What promises are you making, you terrible people? Yeah. Let's see here. So there was a question from Ed777. When new games get coins, will node owners be rewarded in these coins daily, or will be based on some work/event? There's a lot of different ways that could be done. It could be something that is tied to a specific event. So, for example, we've talked about distribution of new coins being tied to a function of daily active users. Okay, so a percentage of new coins will be released as the number of players on the specific game grows, and there would be a percentage of that would be dropped to the node operators. They could also be based on specific events, specific in-game events. So in a game like Fortified, for example, you could have a certain number of coins be unlocked every time somebody places a level 4 tower, hypothetically speaking. So it's tied directly to people who are actually playing the game and events that are happening in the game, so that you can set up a very robust economy and ecosystem around this. It could also be a time-based thing where X amount of coins are going to be released over Y number of years, and there's a halving every year or something. There's a lot of different ways that we can do that. But no matter how it's done, there will be a percentage of this that goes to the node operators whenever those releases happen. Okay, guys. I thank you, Mr. Nobody. I look like, wow, that's really a depressing picture. Holy Lord. Okay. Um, those of you who can't see the chat, Mr. Nobody just posted this terrible picture of me from I don't know how long ago, looking like a sad thumb to me now, looking like an upgraded thumb. God, that's so depressing. I look like Earthworm Jim. That's terrible. Oh my God. Okay, Chris is losing his shit. Um, so I would with that. This is the high point of the entire AMA here. I'm gonna go ahead and do you guys have any last minute questions that you'd like to take, or shall I wrap this up and we'll call it a day? And by call it a day, I
shout
mean
out to the platform testers.
oh yeah, seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you, and the mods.
Being able to lean on you guys and troubleshoot bugs, just like the feedback was so quick, it made development super speedy.
I'll answer one question that was asked by not answering it. Someone asked, how many Gala have already been distributed? Well, the great thing is that since we're currently on the Ethereum blockchain, you can check that. Anyone can go look at the contract and see exactly how much has gone out. Anyone can go look at the contract and see the maximum that will ever go out and read the contract to ensure that's exactly how it's going to work. So that's the whole point of the blockchain and the decentralized ledger that cannot be edited, is that anyone can see it and confirm that we mean what we say and that we're doing what we say. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that is the you can find the link to the contract on the Gala.games website. It's down at the bottom.
No.
Okay, guys.
Have an official release date yet for the new node? I know we did a soft launch on Friday, but
well, so Dan the Canon, if it's public information, just say it. I think the reason nobody says it is because we're not like sitting here counting. Let me tell you right now, just
yeah.
So you can be.
Someone comes and looks at this a month later and is like, "Ooh, this is the number," even though it's changed.
Exactly.
Did it?
But
we're really a fan of people. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. It's cool.
I said it, we want to educate people, right? We don't want to just say, yeah, it's blockchain, give us your money, right? We want everyone to have a better understanding of how it works, and that's why I give you the longer explanation about how you could go find it and how anyone could go find it.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, if you were to go to Etherscan and look up the Gala contract, which I would say, but it's a bunch of letters and numbers. The current total supply as of June 16th at 9:06 a.m. is 34,661,048,721.16874,157 Gala. Is that? I hope that's precise enough.
And now that number is already wrong. It's already outdated. In the time you were reading it, someone meant it.
I know, right? I know. Let me go ahead. I'm gonna drop this in the chat just so everybody can see it too, and everyone can be happy. And there. Okay, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I don't have my nifty little outro thing anymore, so we're all gonna have to, give awkward thumbs up until I say kill the stream. But yeah, thank you very much. This has been an AMA with the Gala Games Node ecosystem team, and we're very, very happy and excited to have all of you here with us. So join our Discord at galagames.chat, where you can ask questions too, and we will talk to you guys all in the very near future. So thank you. Peace out, guys. Awkward waving. Awkward waving.